Today on The Riff, Martz and Drew talk about being offended. I hope it's not from something I said. We hope today is helpful. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to another episode of
The Riff.
Yes!
I'm gonna close the door.
Oh, yeah, please do that. Well, actually, it's bright and early. There's not a soul here right now.
These things come out early Monday mornings, but little word to the wise, we don't actually film on Monday mornings.
No, but we are filming in the morning today.
Yeah, today's earlier day than normal.
I got a couple crusties in the eyes.
Samesies.
You know,
Samesies.
I don't know if we're more alert or less alert early in the morning. Are you a morning guy?
My brain is the freshest in the morning. So I do wake up. If I don't set an alarm, I'll wake up between 6 and 6:30 every day, and my brain is clear.
Wow.
And so the best thing I do normally is in the morning, but yeah.
Were you always that way?
No.
Same.
Kids.
That's exact. Kids and coffee. Those are the two. I was an insane night person. So I would stay up. Actually, my dad's always been an insane morning person. And so I would be going to bed at like 4 a.m. He'd be getting up at like 3:30, 4 a.m. And so we'd kind of like both like, as we'd be in like the living room when I was in high school, or come back from college. We'd both like kind of look at each other a little shamefully.
Yeah.
Of like, why are you getting up this early?
Yeah.
And he's like, why are you going to bed this late?
Yeah.
We wouldn't say anything. And then like, I'd go to bed and he'd always sit in the living room and read his Bible. And so it's just so funny. Like, we were complete opposites. And now, kids.
Yeah. That's what happened. Yeah. It's, and then I had like a 9 to 5, 8 to 5 job. So I had to be up at a certain time. And but before that, I was a night person. My wife's very much a night owl.
Really?
I think she'll regress. When the kids move on, I think she'll
go back.
She'll be a middle of the night person again.
I hope I go back. I love night. Some of my most creative thinking was then, and now it's morning.
Yeah. I was the same. Yeah. I like mornings because it's like my time and my space. But left to my druthers when I'm an old man, retired somewhere.
Hey, what are druthers?
I don't know.
I keep learning new words from you.
My drathers, I think. I'd rather be doing that.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like a Ozark thing or what that is. My druthers.
I don't know, but I like it.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that.
Try it.
Druthers. I'm going to figure out a way to use that today.
Yeah.
Riff Raff, that's your assignment, your homework.
If I had my druthers.
Yeah. How many times my Drew rathers? That's what I think of it.
Yeah.
Drew's rathers. And he'd rather, wake up early. But today, we're actually talking about something. We do have some content.
We do.
We decided on a title. Well, I don't know if this is actually the title, but unoffendable.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, sure. Unoffendable.
We're talking about being offended.
Yeah.
And which is a natural thing to happen. Everyone gets offended from time to time. Walk me through that. Why do people get offended?
So the way I think about it is if you have people, you have problems. So if you're going to interact with other humans on any level and you care about things, you're going to be offended,
So it's actually a good thing because you care about it.
Right. Exactly. Like there's times I remember just praying about something. I was so frustrated and I just felt like the Lord was like, hey, you're frustrated because you care. You're frustrated for the right reasons. Now, what are you going to do with it? And it's like, there's something like, why do I even care? It's like, well, you do care. So the more you care about something or the more you care about someone, and the closer you get to that thing, the more likely you are to find some friction. You can be unoffended if you just live in a cave somewhere by yourself. But, if you're going to put your heart into anything, you're going to get hurt. Your feelings are going to get hurt. I think every offense to me, I always think it starts at an unmet expectation. The simple way, like if you're listening to this right now and you're offended or bothered with somebody, or something, it really came down to someone did not meet your expectation. So they did something that you didn't expect them to do. Like you're surprised by what they did, or they didn't do something that you did expect them to do. So there's always a missed expectation underneath an offense. So anytime you're bothered by something, whether it's in the workplace or at home, there's always a missed expectation. And I've found myself, like when I'm frustrated with something or somebody and I'm offended, I'm bothered, it's helpful for me instead of just stewing on how frustrated I am to go back to like name it. Like what's the actual thing that they did that I'm bothered with? And normally if you go and pinpoint it, normally it's not as big of a deal as you think. And the only way to get around and through that frustration offense is by going back to the place it started. So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that was well said. I think the advice that I always give a new almost married couple maybe Like, do you ever go to weddings and it's like, hey, give us your best piece of advice?
Yeah.
I don't know what people write down.
Yeah.
Do you have like a piece of advice you always give?
I don't know. I don't have a standard one, no.
I feel like if I was going to give real advice, sometimes I give fake advice on there. Okay, just funny advice. But my real advice is always manage expectations. Because that's what it is. It's you have an expectation. Like when it comes to marriage, when it comes to career, when it comes to the way people treat you and talk to you, when it comes to your kids, like for years and years and years and years, even before you're married, before you have kids, you have expectations of what that's going to look like. And then when reality does not meet your expectation, you are correct. There is an opportunity to be offended.
Yeah.
And like there have been times in my marriage where that is the hardest obstacle to overcome. Is and it can be something simple. It could be something fun that honestly gets ruined because of a missed expectation. It can be a birthday you're excited about, but you throw the party and they're like, I just didn't want to party, or you go take a day trip to Kansas City or St. Louis and they had one thing they wanted to do, but that was the one thing you didn't have time to do. And it's like, oh, we would have talked about this if we would have walked through expectations. This is why in careers, people leave frustrated because they're like, that wasn't what I expected to be doing, or that wasn't how I expected to be treated. And so managing those expectations is great. And communicating those expectations is important too.
Absolutely.
So what does that look like to communicate those?
I think it's one, like, I think this might sound corny, but I think you have to communicate with yourself first. Like actually have an honest conversation with yourself. What do I expect here? And is that realistic? I think for a lot of young people, like early in their career, they get started and they're like, well, I expect to be making, X dollar amount. I'm making six figures by year one and I want to get promoted this fast. And it's like, hey, write that down and ask yourself, is that a fair expectation to have of the company you work for or the boss you work for? Or like at home, like, is it a fair expectation for your spouse to, do this or do that? Like, and so really ask yourself like, okay, what because sometimes you don't even know that you have expectations. You haven't even really leveled with yourself on what you're expecting, much less communicated into somebody else. And
it seeps in because like in marriage, some people, maybe you watch The Bachelor and you haven't missed a single season of it. And it's like, there are things that just naturally give you expectations that you didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? And oftentimes it's what you've been consuming actually, overflows through your heart.
Yeah.
But it's you may not even want that expectation, but it's there, and you got to figure out where did that come from and why that's there. So I do think that's helpful to name it.
Yeah, and I think once you like level with yourself, and that's why I'm like, okay, once you're offended, normally the time you actually stop and think about it is when the offense has happened. Then you got to go back and be like, okay, why am I offended? It's like, oh, okay, because they did this and that really just rubbed me the wrong way. Is that fair for me to have that expectation of them? Because sometimes what happens a lot of times for me is I have an offense in my heart towards somebody. And when I go back and really try to pinpoint what it was, I go back and look in the mirror and I'm like, Drew, that was kind of a ridiculous expectation to put on them. And you never communicated it. And so what I need to do is actually forgive them instead of holding on to this thing and saying like, wait a minute, I actually am the one with the crazy expectations and I actually never communicated them. And so they missed a standard. Like then you hold people to standards they don't even know that you have for them. Right. And so then you're watching the scoreboard and you're like, well, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. And it's like, well, okay, you never communicated that, so they don't even know. And so then there's frustration and bitterness that grows between people. And so again, no matter what you're doing in life, you're going to get offended every day, whether it's the person driving in front of you in the car, whether it's the person that's taking too long in front of you at the gas station, whatever the thing is, it's like when you're irritated, like you just got to look, why am I expecting this? And so I think that's the thing. First thing is like communicate with yourself and then with the other person, like, hey, here's kind of what I need, or here's what I was hoping for, or here's what I would like to do, and then align on it. Like, hey, what's the agreed upon thing that we're like the terms of the deal in the sense, especially at work. It's like, well, what are you expecting? What are you hoping for? Mm-hmm. And then if you're a leader, like how can I meet my people's expectations? And and if you're a leader, how can I be very clear on what my expectations are? And if you're not clear on that stuff, then you always just have to pursue those clarifying conversations. So
there's so many angles here. Because there is like, hey, when I'm offended, sometimes there's the feelings that you have to navigate there. Sometimes there's actions that come after that. Yeah. Actions that maybe are reactions. And then maybe there's sometimes where it's a chosen action. There's also the other side of it when someone is offended by you.
Yeah.
Or with you, or, and you have to, whether it's de-escalate the situation, maybe for you, it's like figure out like, was I actually offensive or was I not? Maybe that's not the point.
Yeah.
But like as a leader, I'm sure you've experienced both sides. Like even coming into North Point, you've probably had expectations that didn't get met, and you've had to navigate those emotions, those feelings, those conversations, and just, you may not have even done anything wrong.
Yeah.
But people are offended by you.
Oh, yeah.
Over something that
Absolutely.
you're like, that wasn't what I thought I said or how I meant it, and that was taken that way. Walk me through how you've navigated that.
Yeah, I think, and that's very accurate, and that it's very normal. Like why, and the why on that is like, let's go as even like me coming into North Point. Why would this be a great environment for someone to get offended? It's a lot of people, and we all really care about this church.
Very true.
It's
actually a good thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that care about this mission and live it out. And yes.
And so like for like me coming in, like, right, everyone's like, who is this guy going to screw it up? Is he going to get it? Like, so there are people, because you care, you can almost be looking for offense, And so for me, I think a couple of things I did naturally on the way in, and not that this is like because I'm a great example all the time, but I has been very intentional not to change much at all. I just came in and ran the place. Like, hey, what have we been doing it? How have we been doing it? And let me seek to understand and really learn how we're doing things, why are we doing things, and try to learn as much as possible so that I have a deeper understanding of what and why. So before you change anything, you're like, okay, well, let me really understand why we're doing what we're doing, not just coming in with an ego and ideas. So I think there's like there's that, and I've also just asked everyone that I talk to that I've met. I've probably had this exact conversation with, easily 100 people just in the lobby of how long you been here, why do you love it?
How many people said John Martz?
Most.
Marianne?
Most. Yeah, Marianne. Yeah, okay. For sure. Yeah. It's Martz's blue eyes and a charming smile.
She even thinks my mustache is cute. So,
hey.
And it's not.
Everyone's got a fan club.
It's not. So
it's the long torso.
That's it. It's the swimmer's body.
Swimmer's body. Martz has an abnormally long torso.
Yeah.
I don't want to say abnormal. True. I'll just say
I don't know.
It is what it is.
It's just what I've always had.
Yeah.
So
you have the wingspan of a condor.
No one be offended. Okay.
Not offended at all. But yeah. So just asking that question, like, why do you love it? And so for me, what I'm gathering, and as people answer that question, is I'm gathering my, what are the expectations?
Very true.
And the common answers are, hey, we're a church that does stuff in the community, and like, and we want to be the arrows out type of thing. I feel like I can invite my friends here. It's not going to be weird. Like I can invite my friends here, and whether they're churched or not, like I know it's not going to be some crazy experience, which like we both got stories, Yeah.
And it's going to make sense. You're going to use language that people understand. You're not going to be like, well, you guys know this Bible story. It's like, no, actually a lot of people probably don't at North Point.
And be okay with that. Yeah. And so I think for me, as I listen to those things, I'm like, what I'm gathering is expectations. Here are the expectations of what's made North Point what it is, and where as much as I can, how can I meet those expectations?
How do you let go of the things that you can't? Like, there's some that are unrealistic that you're like, I can't be another person, or I can't have different convictions than I have.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
Yeah. You just have grace for people, and you also know that you can't meet everyone's expectations. And that's where you have to like operate out of your own convictions and be like, well, I still got to be true to kind of who I am, and know that you're not always for everybody, and that's okay, and really being okay with that. I think having your identity and security and who you are in Christ, but also being like very sensitive and thoughtful towards the people you're around, so I have a great respect, for North Point. And so for me, that's been a lot of questions. It's, I want to understand the expectations, meet as many as I can, and areas where I know I'm just not going to meet the expectation because it's not kind of who I am or whatever. Just be gracious about it and be like, and just be okay and know that I might be missing people's expectations here, and be okay with it, where you can lead the runner on that. Be like, hey, here's something I can't do, or here's what I can't be. And I think those are like, to me, like that's, if you make it not about you, it really solves a lot of problems. It's actually not about me. And so the more things are about you, the more offended you're going to be. Like then it's like, when me is the standard to which everything else needs to be measured up against, like because my way is the right way, well, then now everyone who disagrees with you, when there's no humility, you're always going to walk around bitter, offended at people. And we all know that person, that just crusty person who's just like salty at everything. And it's like, well, there's no humility in that. So yeah, I think about that. Like, how do you meet as many as you can in a fair way? You can go too far in that and just be a people pleaser. Then you lose yourself in the process. Yes. I think most leaders definitely have felt that. We're like, I don't even know who I am. I'm like fit in the system. I've lost myself along the way. That's not good. So just I think what we're trying to do is uncover as many, I always call it clearing the fog, just like sometimes you're walking, those foggy mornings you're driving, you just can't see very far. You can only see 10 feet in front of you. You need the fog to clear as much as you can. And like, how do you clear the fog out of a room so you can see what needs to be seen, at least know what the obstacles are, at least know where this road goes, at least know where the thing is. It's like, once you have visibility into what it is, then you can make good decisions. But asking clarifying questions, what you said, like, how do you clarify the expectation up front, set expectations, clarify them. That clears the fog out of most relationships, whether that's church, work, home. You're able to then honestly make your best effort, to...
Yeah, and I think the more you grow in leadership, the more you become misunderstood. And there's two approaches to that. Leaders can either be like, well, I need to make sure everyone understands me. Or, which might be, that's a long, tough pursuit. Yeah. And you're probably going to be left offended. Or the other end, and this is where I've seen you... I mean, incredible. Like you forward me emails you've gotten from people, and I'm like, oh, I probably wouldn't have forwarded that to anybody. I would have been like, I don't know, hiding that and being like, somebody doesn't like me. I just don't want anybody to know that, But you forwarded that, and the way that you've handled those with such grace, not in a way of like, hey, let me defend my position. Let me show you, hey, here's me. I want you to understand me. You've gone after and been like, man, I bet there's a story behind that. And I've seen you go and grab lunch with that person and dive into their story and come back and be like, oh, wow. After sitting down with them, I understand how they would piece this together, or the lens in which they look at life through. And you just have a greater compassion for people. How did you learn that? Or is that something that's always been natural in you? Because a lot of times we want to get defensive. We want people to understand us. And that's not how I meant that. But you have gone after and been like, let me understand them.
Yeah, I think, that's like, I've had a couple of those where, I would say the first thing is, it's not about you. The sooner you can get that in your guts about, honestly, all of life, it's not about you. And that is like so offensive to the average American independent life, liberty, pursuit of justice, like that whole thing. It's about independence and it's about me. And there's something in the American spirit that's wonderful there that makes this like the most successful, depending on how you define success, like country and the planet of Earth ever. But there's some radical things about the gospel that are deeply like un-American and un-Western. Mm-hmm. It's not about you. And if you can get that in your marriage, if you can get that in your home, if you can get that even in your leadership, it's actually about the people. It's about them. And like, leadership is not a mountain to climb. It's a weight to carry. And you have to understand, like, you're carrying the weight of people's expectations, and you have to be graceful about that. There's a couple of those examples, like where, I got a couple of spicy emails early on where it's like,
you said this minute line in your 40-minute message. And I'm like, dude, I don't even remember you saying that. And you're like, I don't remember saying that.
And I went back and listened to it. I'm like, I don't know that I even said that, but it doesn't. Here's the thing though. So I had two options in that. And so it was like, it was an email that was like, kind of, hey, here's all the things that are, I think you're this and this and this and this. And they took one thing and really extrapolated this whole thing about who I was that was like just not accurate, and I could be offended by that and be like, well, they don't understand, and I can't believe they have the nerve, and they know how hard, like, okay. Or I could be like, well, okay, well, how did they get there? And so I went back and listened to it. I'm like, I don't think I said that. But even, it doesn't matter. Again, as a leader, you're not accountable to your intentions. You're accountable to your impact. And most leaders don't want to deal with that. You have to really say, what's the impact that had on somebody? And now how do I say, you can't just like chase everything, but it's like, all right, that's the impact it had. Whatever I did or said, it caused someone who's been around a long time to feel a certain way. And so, instead of being offended, what I normally do is I'm not going to get in email exchanges with people. My first thing is like, hey, let's grab lunch or grab coffee. that normally disarms people pretty quick. Because it's like, hey, let me listen, then just sit and listen to people's story. And sure enough, most of the times most people have been through deeply wounding experiences. A lot of people have been through deeply wounding experiences with leaders. A lot of people in today's day and age have been through deeply hurtful situations with pastors. And that sucks. But sure enough, it was like, okay, when you kind of pulled the string a little bit, it was like, well, what you actually did is you reminded me of somebody else who did these 6 things. And so it was interesting to go down that lane and just like, love the person,
And when you're offended, you could have very easily proven that person right.
Yes, exactly. And that's the insecure leader becomes a psycho. Like if you have deep insecurities and you get into leadership, you said it earlier, like leadership will expose every single one of your insecurities.
It doesn't fix it. It doesn't change it.
Nope.
It reveals it.
Yep. Clears the fog out on you, and so you will have the opportunity to constantly be offended. And that's the boss who has, I could go down that whole line, but like that's the leader who's, flexing when they don't need to flex. They're pulling rank, pulling title. They start to, puff up, and they have to they surround themselves with yes men to feed their ego, to make sure, and it's like, because they're constantly in this defensive reinforce. Oh no, I belong here, because they're trying to tell themselves you belong here. Instead of just having the quiet confidence of God put me here and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to steward the thing he's given me. Love people as best I can, lead as best I can, and be okay with the results. I think there's just no matter where you're leading, I saw that in corporate America as much as I see it in the church. Just people who are insecure, who get in leadership roles, all of a sudden their role is who they are. That person is very offendable, and they're likely to hurt a lot of people. The offense thing though, like I think there is a, what do you do with the offense? I think it's important. You have to, you can pick it up. The word for offense in the New Testament that Jesus uses a few times, the Greek word means like it's a tripping point. It's something you trip over, which is unexpected. You never trip over something you saw coming.
Very true.
When you trip over something, it's like, oh, didn't see that coming. And so like the word scandalizo in the Greek is used a few times. And so like Peter uses it for the cornerstone. I think I don't remember if it's 1st or 2nd Peter, but where he's saying, hey, that Jesus has become the cornerstone, the rock, and he basically is the rock that people stumbled over has become the chief cornerstone. And so Peter is saying like, Jesus was offensive, and you're either going to trip over him and have him be the thing you trip over, or you're going to use Jesus as the cornerstone of what you build your life on. It's one or the other. So he's either the thing you trip over and stumble over, where you're like, I can't wrap my head around this. I cannot wrap my head around Jesus. I cannot believe that he is who he says he was. I really don't believe the resurrection. Whatever the thing is, it either becomes a tripping point where you stumble and you're like, he didn't do what I expected, or he wasn't what I expected. For the Pharisees, like he wasn't what they expected. For a lot of his followers, they wanted to be something else, and they walked away because he was a tripping point. But if you follow him, he becomes the cornerstone. You build on it, So there's all these verses where it talks about like, are you going to be offended? Because I think the biggest thing you can be offended with is God. Jesus, John the Baptist, he's in the prison, and this is one of my favorite Bible stories. Like John sends the messengers to Jesus, like, hey, are you the Messiah, or is there somebody else coming? John the Baptist, of all people, knew he was the Messiah. He was there, the baptism, the whole thing. This is my son, whom I will please. Like he heard the audible voice of God affirming this is the Messiah. But when he's in a prison cell because his life didn't go the way he expected it to go, he questions everything.
Yeah, and I'm seeing all these miracles happen over here, and like, God, you gonna free me?
Yep. And so, and every person can relate to that. Like, okay, someone else got healed, but I didn't. I did all the right things. I met with somebody recently and did all the right things, but their marriage is still falling apart. And they're like, they feel like that, but I did it by the book, and it still didn't turn out the way I wanted to. And I think the church historically, not North Point, but just the church in general, we've just been terrible at that. We were like, hey, if you follow Jesus, everything's gonna be great. Yeah. It's not. It's gonna be hard. And so like John, that messengers get to Jesus, and he sends a message back. Hey, tell John, like the lame walk, the blind receive their sight, and so like all this whole thing, there's freedom to the captives. And one more thing, blessed is he who's not offended because of me.
Oh,
That is one of the, like, my favorite Bible verses. Cause like, I just had to be like, when Jesus does not do what you expect him to do, what do you do when Jesus misses your expectations? Jesus tells John the Baptist in prison, who gets his head cut off a week later, by the way, like, I'm not coming to free you. You're not going to, this is not going to end the way you want it to. And I'm going to do for others what I'm actually not going to do for you. But by the way, there's a blessing if you choose not to be offended by it. That's insane. Like, that's one of the craziest stories ever. He's like, I'm going to give you something to trip over. The offense, the scandalizo, the tripping point. Like, what are you going to do with it? When God doesn't meet your expectations, Jesus said, hey, there's a blessing if you choose to take the things you don't understand about Jesus, the things that bother you, the things that offend you, the ways that he asks you to, that he allows you to suffer that you don't, like, John's suffering and Jesus lets him. But he's like, what are you going to do? There's a blessing if you don't get offended by this. And so you're either going to trip over that rock or you're going to take that rock and build your life on it and say, like, I trust you anyway. And there's a deep level of sacrifice and surrender of following Jesus that is, like, to me, it's just like that story's always blown my mind because it's so un-Western, give and get.
yeah. There's
right
not
things.
a cool, pretty bow on the end of that story of, and then here's what happened. And then he received back tenfold what he invested in.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah.
you know, that ends in tragedy.
Yeah. And
From,
you have
to our brains.
To our brains, yeah. And I think that's where, like, when you read, we just talked about, like, the rich young ruler last week, and he tells him, he's like, hey, you receive 100-fold for if whatever you've left for my name's sake in the gospel, you'll receive 100-fold in this life and the life to come. The thing is, there is this give and get thing, but it's not in the way that we want it to work out. No. Like John the Baptist, his reward
might not be how we expect.
Yes. It's like John the Baptist, I assume, like, that reward that he's getting is, one, his life goes down and we're sitting here talking about it 2,000 years later.
True.
And, you know, also, like, there is an afterlife, and it's like, there are some things that will not make sense to you until you get to heaven. And you have to hold that tension your entire life.
This is what I want to get at the end. We got a couple minutes left. How do you let go? Because there's the famous story of the monk. He's with one of his pupils, and they're traveling on the road. This is, like, I've thought about this for a long time. They're traveling on the road.
Pupil is funny to me.
Pupil. And they come up to a gal who can't cross the river. The river's too high, and so one of the monks the teacher just picks her up and walks her across the river, sets her down, and so then the monk and the people keep traveling, and the people just keeps thinking about this over and over. And he's like, hey, you know, like they're not supposed to touch women. It's like, hey, like, you shouldn't have picked her up. And, like, he'd been thinking about it, and like, finally, after, like, mile 5, he brings it up to the teacher, and the teacher's like, I dropped her 5 miles ago. Why have you still been carrying that around? And, like, that thought and that offense. And I think, like, it's so natural for us to ruminate. It's so natural for us to, like, just hold that in and keep carrying that. Like, there might be some people listening right now that are like, I just don't know how to let go, though.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I don't think there's I think the things in my life, there's almost there's a letting go that's probably more of a process than a moment. For me, the way I've had to let go of things, it's in prayer, it's in worship. Like, it is that active surrendering of saying, God, I surrender my right to have an answer. I trust you anyway. Like, I surrender my right to be offended. Like, I'm going to die to myself, pick up my cross, and follow you. Like, again, not popular. That's the gospel. Like, there is this moment of just, like, and I hope that doesn't sound cruel or heartless, because people go through terrible things, diagnoses that don't make sense, things that fail that shouldn't have. There is a letting go of, okay, I don't understand this. This is not what I would have done if I were you. But there's I don't know how to describe it. There is a letting go that's a spiritual sacrifice. It is a letting go. And I think, you know, we make sacrifices that are pleasing to God, you know, it says in Peter. And I think some of those happen in prayer and worship where it's like, God, you're God, I'm not. I don't understand it, but I don't need to. God doesn't always owe you an explanation. That's not hard to take, but that is a hard one to take. But I think there is it's a spiritual sacrifice. It's an offering. It's a heart posture that says, God, I'm going to trust you anyway. The only opportunity that you will have to trust God and have faith in God in the unknown is on this side of eternity. I believe there's an afterlife. I believe there's a new heavens, new earth. And, theologians argue about what it's going to look like. They're all smarter than me. But we have this life, and it might be 20 years, 60 years, 80 years. My grandmother lived to 100 years old. It's like, that's a long one, but there's when you cross over into God's permanent presence, where sin doesn't exist, evil doesn't exist, brokenness doesn't exist, no disease, no pain, no suffering, for eternity, you will never have a question again, I don't think, because you'll be in the fullness of God's presence, where it's like he's be fully known, fully seen, and I don't think that you'll need faith in that moment because you'll be with him. We have this lifetime in front of us now to trust God through pain that we only have an opportunity to do now. Easier said than done, but there's a day when you will not have to hold the pain anymore. We hold it now. We carry this weight until we cross over, but at that moment we'll let the weight down and walk into eternity without the pain and the suffering that we've held this entire life. So my ability to trust God through and hold pain, trust God in one hand and hold pain in the other, it's a tension to manage and a muscle that we build now that is not permanent. So
trust God, hold pain. Oh, that's good.
That'll preach. Take that one for your next
helpful.
one.
Will do. Riff Raff, we love you. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.